What is going on, all? Welcome to this week's episode of Conquer the Day. I am your host, Brian Pickowicz.
And I'm your co-host, Lindsey Rago.
And today what we're going to be talking about is the 5 motivation mistakes that keep you from making the progress that you want. And so if you've ever been in this journey of health, in this journey of fitness, and realized some days I just feel like doing it and some days I don't. And if you allow that to persist, you find yourself in that valley where motivation is lacking or motivation can't be found. Today, we're going to show you the 5 mistakes that you're most likely making and then how you can start to change the way you're thinking about this and also the way you're acting, the way you're moving, so that you can overcome these mistakes and start to make the consistent progress you want.
Right, absolutely. Our intention with this episode is definitely not to beat you up or make you feel like you're failing. We are going to be talking about the problems, the challenges, the improper mindsets that are keeping you stuck. But again, to echo what Brian is saying, the reason that we share all of these is so that you can have basically a helicopter perspective of where you're at, why you're there, and how you can course correct to get back on track so that you have that momentum again, you have that energy, and you start to feel like you're making progress again, no matter where you're at in your journey.
And I think the important thing to know is that not having motivation, feeling like I don't really feel it today, even though I was feeling it yesterday, is a pretty normal occurrence, right? So Lindsey and I have had multiple experiences in our journey where there's been a lack of motivation. I think for myself, when I was younger, I was trying to be a professional bodybuilder, and I was on this course, and I realized I didn't really want to follow through this. And so what happened was I was blessed to get injured, which sounds like a really strange thing to be blessed with, but it changed the trajectory of my life. It changed the course I was on. Now, at the time, it didn't seem like much of a blessing because my body changed. I ended up putting on like 30 pounds. And in the time period after I healed from the injury to really about a year, I really struggled with motivation. And it was because I kept going back to what I used to do, right? If you ever found yourself saying, I know what I need to do, I just need to do it. I was kind of in that spot where I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to work out like this. I need to track my macros like this. But the truth is that I actually didn't know what I needed to do because I wasn't adapting to that season. I wasn't adapting to my new body. I wasn't adapting to the lifestyle that I wanted or even the lifestyle that I had. And so we get to these points where we feel like we know what we need to do. We just tell ourselves we need to do it. And this is actually a fallacy. This actually makes it so motivation is harder because we're not adapting. We're not developing new programming, if you will. So think of it as like your Mac. Your Mac has an operating system, and over time, that operating system needs to be updated. If you keep working on the same operating system year after year, you're probably going to have some bugs. And so you can think of that bug as not feeling motivated, not being consistent, not seeing the progress that you want. And so if we start to channel a new way of thinking, if we start to channel a new way of behaving, we can break through some of these challenges and really get to where we want to be.
Yeah, so diving into the 5 mistakes, because we want to jump right in with you here. The first mistake that we typically see and that we've experienced in the past is not understanding motivation. And what I mean by that is not understanding where it comes from, why you have it some days, and why you don't others. Because if you don't understand it, then you can't master it. You can't get yourself over that hump. Because when you're feeling unmotivated, it almost seems like that feeling of low energy, low hum, low motivation is going to last forever, right? But if we really understand what creates that motivation, what drives us to take action, we can find little ways to hack our mind or hack our brain so that we actually can get ourselves motivated.
And so what we want to start to understand about motivation is a feeling, right? It is a desire. You can think of it as a motive to take action. And now, where does it come from? Well, it's driven by 2 systems in our body. One is related to our brain, and one is related to our physical body. And they both are driven off of dopamine. And so dopamine is a seeking molecule. It is the molecule of more. If you ever read that book, it's about something that we are desiring external to us, and it's moving us to take action. And so the brain seeks. Think of that as the brain seeks. When the brain is seeking something, it's seeking to receive a potential reward. And so if you think of why you go to social media, it's because unconsciously or consciously, you think that there's going to be a reward that's coming to you. That's the dopamine hit, if you will. But really, if you think of it in a more broad sense, it's our brain triangulating on something that we want to receive or something that we need to receive. A good example of this is if you think of like 10,000 years ago, you had been living in a village or you've been living maybe in the woods, somewhere with your family. And at one point, you might realize like, hey, I don't have enough food, I don't have enough water. And your dopamine systems would kick in and say, okay, we need to go find that. We need to go and receive or track or discover the thing that we don't have. And that would kick us into mental action. We would start to perceive, okay, what are the opportunities to get this? Where can I go? Who do I have to talk to? Your brain would start to seek and find different answers. And so that's the first system, is our brain seeking. Now, we're going to talk about this later, but we need to make sure that if we have this mindset or this wisdom that the brain seeks, we need to make sure we're seeking the right things, right? We need to know what we're going after, and we need to make it compelling.
Yep.
But the second way that we receive motivation is through our body. The body moves. And when the body moves, there's a dopamine secretion inside our muscles. Our body literally releases more dopamine. And so when you think of that feeling, maybe you've been in the position where you're like, oh, I really don't want to work out today. And then you go and get a workout, and by the end, you're like, wow, that was like the best workout I've ever had. It's because you were actually in a valley where there was no dopamine. Right? You had a decrease in your baseline dopamine, and working out increases your dopamine. And so that boost, that drive up of your dopamine literally makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. And so we have to start to understand if our brain seeks and our body moves, these are two systems that we can tap into at any time to start to get ourselves feeling motivated again.
Now, keep that in your mind as we go through these other 4 mistakes, because these are all going to build off of each other. So not understanding motivation makes it really hard to give ourselves grace and also understand what to do next.
Well, there's almost judgment, right? Because we don't understand it. We're like, oh, why don't I feel motivated?
I'm so unmotivated. I'm the worst. Like, I don't know why I don't want it. It's like, that's not helpful. Mm-hmm. I understand it fully for like trying to get yourself into action. You beat yourself up a little bit, but if you understand that motivation does come and go, but that it's generated based off of you feeling like you're seeking something or by physically moving your body, then you have 2 different ways that you can tap into it. The second challenge or mistake that people make when it comes to motivation is that they have uninspiring goals. Mm-hmm. Now, if we know that the brain seeks, it seeks a reward, and we set a goal based off of how awful we feel, mm-hmm. and we just want to feel a little bit less awful, mm-hmm. you can get that by tomorrow, and then your brain's like, all right, well, we got it. We're good. And then you fall backwards until you feel awful again. Mm-hmm. And then you're motivated to not feel awful. So you take 1 step forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 1 step back. On it goes. That is the outcome of having uninspiring goals or strictly setting goals from fear, from frustration, and from anxiety.
And can I jump in on an example of that?
Mm-hmm.
An example of this is if you think of, oh, I just don't want to feel like this. I know you kind of labeled that a little bit, but it's like, I just don't want to feel how I currently do, which means maybe my pants don't fit. Maybe I stepped on the scale and I saw, oh, my weight was up 10 pounds. And so we use this pain to motivate us. And so what happens is if we're in that spot and we say, okay, I don't want my clothes to fit so tight, we might lose that 10 pounds and then our clothes fit a little bit better. It's not actually the long-term compelling future that we want, but it's enough to get us into action. But once we have that perceived outcome achieved, we sabotage ourselves back up because we didn't build something that was inspiring to build off of from that point.
Right. Exactly. That's a good example. And so when you're looking at your goals and you're looking at what you would say in response to what are the results that you're after, what are your fitness goals, if you only say things that you don't want in response to that question, then that's a sign that you probably have some uninspiring goals, and that is contributing to your lack of motivation.
Right? What you want to do instead is you want to build something compelling in the future. And so there's 3 questions to ask yourself. What is the result that I'm after? right? So what is the tangible result? That might be losing a certain amount of weight. That might be looking a certain way, maybe on the beach, or maybe it might be feeling a certain strength or vitality in your body. It might be being able to do something physical. Like I want to go and run a 5K, or I want to hike a 4,000 foot mountain, or I want to be able to deadlift this amount of weight. You want to build something that's tangible as a result. And so that result ideally is not just, you want to have multiple results. You want to have a result that's in the long term, right? Like where do you want to see yourself a year from now? Where do you want to see yourself 6 months from now? And where do you want to see yourself 3 months from now? If you build the long-term result, you can rewind it and kind of figure out the incremental wins along the way. And the second thing we want to do once we have that result is we want to ask ourselves, what is the purpose? Why is this compelling? Why is it important for me to do this? Because if there's not a compelling why, on the hard days, you're not going to follow through. I think of myself, for example, one of my goals was to run a 62.5 mile ultra marathon, which is an insane goal. It was an insane result. But the reason why is personally, I wanted to develop into the type of person who could withstand that kind of pain. It sounds a little masochistic when you say it like that, but the truth is I wanted to see, like, internally, what could I overcome? I thought it was a really great test. In the season of life, I really wanted to push myself that way. There were some lessons I needed to learn about myself, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful experience. But the thing that anchors the purpose together is the impact. And so once we know the result, once we know the purpose, we want to go back to the impact. What is the impact that this change will make in my life? Because if it's just about building a body, if it's just about building a race, that's fantastic, but I guarantee you will not experience the long-term progress that this change really has for you. So for me, it was about really showing up as a better spouse. Like I really want to be more of myself, and I know that when I tap into that part of my power, I'm better for Lindsey. I'm better inside of our coaching experience, whether that's as a one-on-one coach or leading our team. I also felt like I was going to be better for our business. It's like, hey, if I can handle this kind of pressure, it's going to teach me something when I come here. And so when we start to think of the impact, it's like if you want to change your body, and the reason why is you want to have more confidence, it's like, how is that going to impact your family? How is that going to impact your career? How is that going to impact your business or your friends? We want to build a staircase to something different, or a bridge, if you will, to that other area of our life. And that way, they're both working in unison. I think the challenge sometimes can feel like we're taking away from those areas of life. But if we see our fitness and our health as something that gives us more of what we want in other areas, it's far easier to follow through, and it just becomes a part of who you want to be. So I just wanted to add that as like a tidbit for what does it mean to build inspiring goals. You can use these 3 questions to outline something that really compels you forward, and that's going to help you be more consistent with the other things we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think that especially for professionals and for business owners, people who they put a lot of stock into their career, into how they're showing up in that area of life, it can feel like fitness takes away from it. It can feel like I have to take a break from what I'm doing. I have to cancel a meeting. I have to pull back in order to do these other things. Or I have to wake up at 4 a.m. and sacrifice my sleep. If that's where you're at, I promise there's a better way, and we're going to talk about it. But the start of the better way is by thinking, okay, I have these fitness goals. These don't exist in a silo. These actually could help me be better in my career, show up differently, have better energy for my team, for my clients. So already starting to bridge that gap is going to help a lot with your motivation to take action. So in lieu of motivation to take action, the third mistake that many make when it comes to motivation that keeps them stuck is that they wait to be struck by motivation in order to take action, right?
Yeah. Well, the thought process is that motivation has to be there for us to get moving. But what we know, right? So if you think of the first part is that's what your brain is seeking, right? Now we have to move. And so motivation follows movement. When we move our body, we feel more motivated. And so if it's not there, we want to get into state. We want to change how we're physically feeling. Our physiology, when we change it, changes how we feel. And so if you're waiting for motivation to hit you, It's like, what are the things that you could do that would start changing the way your brain is perceiving the next action, right? And that might be putting on a pair of workout clothes, right? I know sometimes I hold myself accountable by saying, oh, it's like 4 p.m. and I don't want to work out. I'll put on my workout clothes, and that teaches me to focus on the next action, which is, hey, you've already committed to this. You've already said you're going to do this. Now you have to go and show up. Sometimes it's just as simple as putting your shoes on and letting motivation meet you at the door. Don't wait to take an action. And as you start to get in a state, right, as you start to move your body, whether that's through walking or through showing up at the gym, or maybe you start stretching a little bit, I guarantee you will start to feel more motivated to take the next action.
Yep. So that is the third mistake, is waiting for motivation. Motivation's going to find you once you start moving your body. Now, there's a caveat to this mistake, because when it comes to getting results, just because you take action doesn't mean you're going to get the results that you're after, right? If you want to lose 50 pounds and you move your body every day, that's going to help you feel better, but it might not necessarily equate to weight loss, for example. Now, when I say there's a caveat to movement, all movement is good. All movement is positive. It is healthy. But if you want to create results, you have to have a roadmap. You have to have a specific roadmap that actually gets you to your target and helps you basically trace backwards to where you are today, right? Think of it like a GPS or a map if you're old school. Thank goodness I never had to drive around with a map. I would have been a mess. I would have been popping my tire on every curb.
It's kind of interesting because that's an example that most people, as we get older, right? Lindsey and I are still, I'm almost 30, so I'll be 30 next year. But as we get older, it's kind of like when you ask kids, have you seen that? Like they ask kids like, oh, how would you like pick up a phone? They're like this. And if you ask people who are a little bit older, how would you pick up a phone? They go like this.
Oh, because flip phone?
Or telephone off the wall. Oh. Like this used to be the symbol for phone. This used to be, now younger generations, this is the symbol for phone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a map. People be like, what are one of those? Like, oh, no, your GPS.
GPS, yes. But so back to the mistake. The mistake that people make is that they don't have the right roadmap, right? They have somebody else's roadmap to their own destination. Think of it in terms of workouts. You can download any workout plan from the internet, right? But is it actually built around your lifestyle? Is it built for where your body is today? Is it built to actually suit you? No.
Or
absolutely not. If you just download one, right?
Yeah, or it might even be your old strategy.
Yeah, or maybe it is like something that worked in the past but doesn't really fit this season of life, right? Any of those factors would make up the wrong roadmap, which makes you feel like you're moving in the right direction. But that's when you start hitting those walls where you start taking action. You do the 6-day workout plan. And by day 5, you're so sore. You don't even want to go back. You have only gained a pound this week. And you're like, whew, well, this isn't even working. And it's so much effort. Mm-hmm. If you feel like it takes so much time, so much effort, and you're not getting results, I guarantee you have the wrong roadmap for you.
Well, and what can also happen is, let's say you set a roadmap that says I have to work out 6 days a week, and then you only work out 3. It's like you have a perception that you're failing. You have a perception that you're not doing a good enough job. Or it might even be more tangible with food because that shows up more consistently. Like, oh, well, I ate a small fry. It's like, okay, well, did you actually fail? But if we have a perception that that is failure.
Or moving backwards from the target.
Exactly. Then we have a decrease in dopamine. Mm-hmm. And then we have also judgment. We have a little bit of shame. We feel guilty. And so we have to make sure that the map that we're following is appropriate for our target. Yep. We have to make sure it's appropriate for our lifestyle, meaning not just our tangible, like how many days can we work out, but what's appropriate for you as far as making healthy decisions with your food. What's appropriate for you for managing stress better, right? There might be other lifestyle factors that we have to look at. It might be your body, right? Maybe you can't work out the same way you used to.
Maybe you have injuries or
if you haven't worked out for a few years. Yep. It's like jumping back. I see this with a lot of the male clients I've worked with in the past, it's like they were really fit in high school, college, and they did bench press and barbell squats and deadlifts, but they're now 45 and they haven't worked out for 10 years. And they're like, oh, whenever I go back to what I used to do, I get hurt. And it's like, yes, that's a really important sign that we have to change for this current result, this current lifestyle, and we have to make it sustainable.
Yeah, and I'll humanize that even a little further. So right now I'm focusing on endurance running. That is really all of my training. And I noticed at the beginning of this training that I tried to keep doing all of the strength training that I used to do when I was in a different season with a different goal. And my body just was not having any of it. My joints would feel painful. My joints would feel achy. And I wasn't performing at my best anywhere. And so I realized that I was trying to train the old way and it didn't suit the current goals. So instead of throwing my papers in the air and saying, I'm going to do no strength training instead, I started just doing a little bit of body weight strength along with my endurance work. So it happens no matter what. I share that not to say that you need to be there or that you need to compare yourself to me, but I say that because no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter how fit you used to be, or how fit you currently are, you're going to experience this misalignment at times where you revert back to what you used to do, and you have to remind yourself over and over, oh wait, life is progressive. Life moves forward. Life grows. You can't hold on to the past with a death grip and hope that it works today. If you do that, you are setting yourself up to feel unmotivated and to feel really frustrated, quite frankly, where instead of seeing it as I'm losing the past me, think, what else is ahead for me? What does my body actually need today? And what's actually going to fit my schedule, my lifestyle? And to your point, if it's tailored to you, your body, if it is built around your lifestyle, and if it is built in a very sustainable fashion that pulls together all the pieces of your mental health, your physical health, and your well-being, then you're going to be able to do it, and it's going to feel good. You're not going to feel like you're dragging yourself to do it. If that's the case, again, to tie down this point, if it feels like a drag, it's probably the wrong roadmap.
Yeah. And the goal can be to get back to where your body can perform, but it's really important we meet ourselves where we're at.
Yes.
And I think it's so key to start to see like, oh, well, hey, maybe I just don't know the right way. Maybe I don't have the right information. It's like if you're not a fitness professional, then that's probably a gap, right? And that's okay, because if you were to put me in a space where I had to be an engineer, I would have no idea. But the problem is that we make the fifth motivation mistake, right? So we might not have an understanding of what motivation is. We might not have a compelling goal. But once we start to build a compelling goal, we start to realize like, hey, I just have to take action. I have to make sure I'm following the roadmap. We also need to make sure that we have the right support, because we oftentimes make the fifth motivation mistake, which is we feel like we have to do it by ourselves. We have this lone wolf mentality. And it's great that you can bear so much on yourself, but if you're a professional, you have a family, you have responsibilities, it's like you have so much on your plate that you need some accountability. You need a support system. You need people in your life who can inspire you, right? The best support system is one that you step into and you feel like no matter whether it's been a challenging day or a great day, you're going to get either a kudos or you're going to have someone who course corrects you. And so we all need guides in our journey, right? Think of the hero's journey. If you've ever watched a great movie, there's always a hero who has a problem that wants an outcome. And there's always a guide that steps into their life that helps them with that outcome. And so we want to be following people who can show us the way. And that might be going to the local gym. That might be the people you follow on social media. Obviously, if you're watching this, like we hope that one of the goals of this podcast is to be a guide for you and show you these things. But if we're just trying to do it ourselves, we're depending that our motivation will last just intrinsically, just internally. Like we will have all the motivation we need. And there's a reason why when you get around great people, great things start to happen. It's because you build off of other people.
Yep.
You start to learn. And I think that there's a level of humility and, I guess, a lack of ego that we all should have when we're starting to change something about our life, to realize like, hey, maybe I don't know everything.
Right.
Maybe I need a better way.
Yeah.
Maybe I can learn something. I think having that growth mindset is so important when we're talking about being able to be consistent along the way.
I love the anchor of maybe. Sometimes maybe creates doubt, but other times maybe is actually the exact word that you need to turn your mind on to possibilities, right? So if you've been stuck in this rut for, goodness, months, years, maybe you need some support. Maybe, just maybe, you need an expert to step into your corner, hold you accountable, and support you through the process of getting in shape, of taking care of your body again, of taking care of yourself again. And maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe that would actually be the best thing you could do for yourself as you turn this season of life around. So we'll leave you with those 5 mistakes and also the solutions, the outcomes that you can strive for instead. Now, with this idea and this topic of motivation, we actually hosted a full-blown motivation masterclass for our community this week at the Fitness Project, and we recorded it. So if you'd like the full recording, what we want you to do is click the link below and join our Facebook community. We do live trainings. We do fully one-on-one. Well, actually, it's really more group, but we do also do one-on-one sessions with our community to make sure that they feel supported, they feel like they have an expert in their corner, and they have an inspiring community around them. So it's free. Go ahead, click the link in the show notes below, and make sure that you join our free Facebook community, Energy Secrets for Professionals and Business Owners. And we look forward to seeing you there.
And we'd also love to hear your thoughts on this podcast. And so if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Let us know, what did you think of the podcast? What is your big takeaway? And what are you gaining from these episodes? And if you're watching this on YouTube, then also comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your big takeaway. And more than anything, we're grateful you're here. We hope this is helpful. We're blessed to be a part of your journey. Now go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.
Cheers.